Hello, everybody out on Facebook. Everybody hang in there with me if you are just coming in. I'm going to be waiting for, hold on here. Let me go ahead and get this paused. There we go. Close this down. We got a couple minutes here. I'm just doing some technical work over here on this side of things to make sure everything is working properly. And we're going to wait for Amy to come on in. Let's see here. Hi, Amy. Hey, hi, everybody coming on in. I am just doing a little technical stuff on the back end here, making sure that we've got good signal. Let's see here. You're muted, Amy. You can go ahead and unmute. Let me just make sure that everything is good on the group that I'm streaming into.
Awesome.
There you go. Okay, I had some feedback, so I'm just trying to fix a couple things over here, make sure I'm not getting myself in my ear over here.
Yep.
Yeah, let me see. Okay, looks like it's working. Good. Okay. All right, we are 3 o'clock on the nose here. So let's give everybody a couple minutes to come in. And I had a lot of people interested that want the replay. I'm going to be attaching this with the great information that you've shared about the attachment trauma and all of that. So just one moment. Let me just make sure that the signal is full. We've had some crazy weather here. Where are you, Amy? Tell me again where you are.
Southern California.
Okay, California. Well, it has been like monsoon crazy weather over here with all the hurricanes and the rain and all of that here in Tennessee. It's been nuts. So hi, Laura and Regina. Okay, so Regina, would you do me a favor and tell me that, let me know in the chat that you can hear us okay, so we can get started. I'd like to check with my people to make sure that you and I just aren't having that conversation. Okay, and once I get a yes, you're good, we're gonna get started. Or anybody else for that matter that wants to say, yeah, we're all good. Okay, great. Thanks, Regina. All right, Amy, as you know, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And I'm just going to tell everyone before I let you introduce yourself that one of the reasons why I'm excited to have Amy here today is not only is she doing amazing things out there in the world of trauma, you guys, but trauma is dear to me because I went through significant trauma myself and with my son not too many years ago, where I didn't realize, I was very unaware of what it was doing to me, not only mentally, emotionally, but physically as well. And I feel like there's so much about trauma that people don't understand, especially around the topic of children. But when I opened my school, I added trauma to part of what I think is so important for health coaches to learn about, because we are working with families all the time where we can be doing all of these things right and still not getting them where they need to be or helping them get where they want to be. And it's in almost, and I hate to say this, but about 85-90% of my clients, the underlying reason they didn't find success was because they had trauma that they didn't even know about. So
exactly.
Let's jump into it. Introduce yourselves to everyone, and tell us, what you've got going on. And then let's just talk about kids and trauma.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to go anywhere in the conversation that would be helpful and interesting to you and your community. I love the work that you're doing, Carmen. The world needs everything that you're doing. So very, very honored to be here with you.
Thank you.
And yeah, I am a conventional medical trained doctor. So went to Loma Linda for medical school, actually also got a master's in biochemistry. I was very much heavy into the sciences, was going to become a pediatric oncologist and cancer doctor. That's where I was headed. And then I adopted my son from the foster care system. And that changed my world
Mm.
because what I thought would help him did not help him. And I thought, oh, this is just something that, he needs just stability. He needs love. We need to help him change his mindset, reframe his childhood. And no, like there's just so much more to trauma. Like you're saying, it actually affects our biology. So then I had my own health crash. And that was when I had to learn, again, by personal experience, how to rewire trauma, stored trauma, how to recognize it, first of all, and then how to rewire it as an adult. I had figured how to do it for kids, had that down pretty well with even the most severe of attachment, trauma, attachment, insecure issues. But how do you do that as an adult? And so that's been the next layer to my work is, all right, for those of us who now are having health symptoms, health conditions, maybe even diagnoses, and we understand enough from trauma now that this is something that's been playing out in our biology years before it actually manifests. And to get to the true root cause, like you're saying, we have to bring this piece in. Not that this is the only piece, but this is part of the piece. And for some people, it was the true root cause. And then maybe some of the other stuff that we can talk about today is some of these genetic factors, some of these epigenetic factors that actually predispose someone to having trauma. And we have to address those pieces if we're going to get the nervous system actually shifted and rewired to a place of security for our best physical, mental, and emotional health.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So we've got two different views here because I went through the trauma as an adult and learned about what it meant to rewire myself as an adult and and then watched my child go through some significant experiences and have learned what it meant to teach him, what it looked like for me, like, right. So I'm seeing it from this side of things. So let's dive right into this. I want to talk about the genetic component first and foremost. I want to start there. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like? And I want to share a story with you as we move through this about how I really understand what that means to be wired into us. So go ahead and talk about the epigenetics, the genetic part of it.
Sure. So epigenetics part of trauma is where it's this idea that this is how generational trauma is actually passed on. And so when a person experiences significant amounts of stress or overwhelm, and those are two different things, and we'll talk about that. But when either one of those are the predominant emotion, that's actually biological states start playing out. And those are both associated with different patterns. Increased levels of oxidative stress, increased levels of inflammation, perhaps hormone changes. But one of the key features, like you're talking about, is this epigenetics. And that's actually changes that happen on the DNA level. And it's there to help us. And so I don't want people to think of this as being a bad thing because this is the design of our bodies to adapt to our environment to help us survive. And it's just that when we go through really hard things in life, especially for a long period of time, a famine, a war, those types of things are going to be then changing our DNA. And that will be passed on to our offspring, to our children, to our grandchildren through epigenetics and these changes on the DNA. And so we can come into the world having a higher risk for experiencing life as stress and overwhelm because of how our DNA is being read and which genes are being expressed more, which proteins are being made more, which neurotransmitters are higher or lower in activity based on how our DNA is being read. So then we can have genetics, and there's actually some genetics that I have a different view of genetics when it comes to trauma than maybe other people, because there's not a gene for trauma.
Right.
Yes. Right. I mean, they've said that they can identify a gene for alcoholism, a gene for bipolar, a gene for diabetes. And even that, I have probably a different view than maybe some people do. But when it comes to trauma, we know, at least I know from all of the work that I've done, that yes, there are certain genetics that will make a person more at risk, more predisposed to experiencing certain events as a trauma. And those would be key things like genetics that cause biochemical imbalances, genetics that like your detoxification system, if that is compromised and you're having a higher toxin burden in your body, on a systems level, you're going near that line of overwhelm more than someone else who has their detoxification system on point and clearing everything out. And so when we look at trauma, then we want to define that, and how I define that is anything that overwhelms your system.
Okay.
Emotionally, psychologically, physically, it doesn't matter. Overwhelm is overwhelm to our body, to the nervous system specifically. And so when we look at some of these genetic factors, what are the things that are going to be pushing our system, our biology closer to that line of overwhelm, that then it just takes one thing and snap, there we go. So genetics, epigenetics are big risk factors for experiencing trauma and overwhelm.
Okay, I
So-
love this. Okay, so let's put this a little bit into some terms that people can understand. So when
Yeah.
we're talking about having genetic factors or SNPs or mutations on our genes, that, it sounds so scary, but it's not. I mean, so many things that are so common, right?
Right.
So maybe let's use this as an example. So let's just say that you have a SNP on your glutathione, the genetics that allows you to have glutathione that helps you to clear out all the toxins and whatnot. So you have a little mutation on there that things aren't working properly, right?
Yep.
So when someone has excessive oxidative stress from the traumatic experience and is unable to clear that through that glutathione pathway, that's what you're talking about, right? That's how we develop this body burden that we are unable to clear. Okay. So not necessarily that, oh, my grandma's grandma had this. It's how we are affected with a little bit of a mutation that doesn't allow us to properly clear those toxins out of our system. Is that right?
It can be both, right? So if our great grandparents went through something extremely overwhelming and stressful, they would have had increased levels of oxidative stress that would have changed their methylation. And it's those methylation pathways that get passed on with our DNA. So we can have those, but saying that, those are things that we can change as well. Like with how we live our life, the environment that we surround ourselves with, the food that we eat, we can change our methylation patterns and footprints on our DNA. So we're not stuck with that. But yes, this aspect of increased amounts of oxidative stress on the DNA, causing damage to the DNA, changing the way it's read, is a big part of trauma that many people just aren't aware of.
Yeah. So let's stay with the methylation conversation, because MTHFR is this big thing that everyone thinks is brand new and novel. It's been around forever. But it is, the B vitamin is so important in how our body is handling the stressors that we're either conscious of or subconscious of, right? So if we even have that little bitty, MTHFR, very common mutation, I have them on both sides. Lucky me. Like I always told you last time, I lost the lottery on the genes. Then we are more predisposed to being incapable of handling those stressful responses within the body, right?
Yes, exactly. And this is where I'll just kind of throw a little teaser in.
Yep.
When the body goes through a stress, it is able to return back to its prior state of health. It's when that stress becomes overwhelming that it becomes a trauma, and it causes these changes to our biology. So a stress is not necessarily bad, right? I mean, we know that as, in our work with the human body, we have seen that, hey, when you exercise, yes, you're stressing your muscles out, but if you're doing it in the right context, if you're doing it with the right amount of stress, it actually promotes growth. It promotes more mitochondria. So stress is a good thing. It's not that stress is bad. It's just how much are we putting our system under? And is it actually more overwhelming us than actually just a stress?
Okay. So for me, then I want to talk about the kids, because that's what people are here to talk about. But for me, when it comes to stress, I had a really hard time when I was setting up the 7 essentials for the school on how do I don't like stress reduction. I don't like stress management. I've told you before, I think it's more stressful to try to reduce and manage those things. So I thought in my mind, how do I explain to people what I think we need to do with stress? And that's to see things differently. So is it possible for us to actually handle these things and deal with trauma differently if we can train our minds to see things as not as the emergency that we live our lives in? If we see it differently, perceive it differently, does that help our DNA and our genes to change in a more positive way?
Yes. And It is, yes, and it's not enough for our mind and our brain to perceive something differently. We actually have to create a felt experience for our body that is different. And so when we are only working with the mind, and I know that's not what you were referring to, but it
Right.
gives me an opportunity to do a little teaching.
Sure. Yeah, please do.
When our mind is doing its thing and it's trying to analyze things, it's trying to use its logic, it's disconnected from that emotional side of our brain. It's disconnected from the survival part of our brain. And so this is where a lot of people get stuck in trying to overcome their trauma with their thinking and their thoughts. And that was where I started, right? Like that's
Mhm.
what we've been taught. That's how we know how to do this. And that's really where I'm here to be like, you guys, wait a second. We've got to address the biology piece, because until the body, and specifically the nervous system, not your brain, but your actual peripheral nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, until that is wired to feel safe and secure, your thoughts aren't going to make as much of a difference as you want it to, because
Okay.
your body will keep you stuck.
Yes, I totally understand that. Okay. So,
Mhm.
and okay, so before I tell this story, I want to talk about kids, and then I'll tell at the
Yeah.
very end how I understood, the generational trauma and whatnot. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the kids. Let's see, what does this look
Yes.
like today in our kids? First, share a little bit about what you recognized with your son, about what you were
Yep.
like, what I'm doing isn't working. And then what was the light bulb that went off and said, I have to do this instead to be able to help him?
Yeah. So for me and my son, it was a very extreme situation. So I was dealing with extreme behaviors, which probably helped me um, deal with it more, because it wasn't something I could ignore.
Right.
Right. And I think that what I see happening in a lot of other families is that, yeah, it's bad. It's not where we want them, but it's not the biggest pain point in my life. And so I'm just going to let that one slide. I'm going to keep ignoring it. And then it becomes a really big problem. And now it's even harder to go back and fix because they're older.
Hmm.
So, what we want to look at is whether the children have a level of attachment with us, and how we can define that, how that manifests, what that looks like, how that would show up in their life is their ability to trust you, that you are the leader, that you are the boss, that you are there to help them and guide them. And so what I see a lot happening, and again, this is normal. This is our new normal. So there's no shame, there's no judgment. I think that the latest studies were showing somewhere around 80 to 85% of people have an insecure attachment. So this
Hmm.
is going to be most of us and most of our children. So let me just put that out there, that there's absolutely no shame and judgment. And what we see happening is a lot of disrespect. And the disrespect, the underlying root cause of that is that they don't trust you. They don't trust that you have their best interest in mind, or that you know better.
Mm.
And so disrespect is one of the very easy ways to see if a child has an insecure attachment, that they've already got this kind of trauma pattern wired into their nervous system, that they're showing disrespect, which they're really showing that I don't trust you. I don't trust what you have to say. I don't have to listen to you. Um, and so that would be an easy way to tell. The other way to tell would be more kids who are just really shut down. So the kids who really are isolating, or they're just very flat, right? Like you try to get a response from them, and there's not much there.
Mm.
So on either end, whether they really react, and you give them a boundary, you tell them no, you give them a limit, and there's this right, the volcano erupts. That would be an insecure attachment pattern. But also the child who's very shut down and withdrawn, and kind of in an emotional collapse, that would also be a form of insecure attachment.
Okay, so two questions. One, I'll ask, is this, can a child have, because I've seen this, I've seen my own child have the disrespect towards the other parent,
Yeah.
and but not with me. I've seen some disregard, but I'm like, well, was that normal for a teenager, that kind of thing. So the question would be this: is it possible, first and foremost, to have the disrespect towards the parent they don't trust, but have a good attachment to the other parent? And how do you tell with a teenager what's normal disrespect behavior and what's traumatic behavior?
Yeah. And this is something that I will probably be going against the grain. And again, because this has just become our normal. It's normal for most kids to have insecure attachments. So what is normal is not necessarily what is healthy
Uh-huh.
or what is best for them and their nervous system and their future. So the ideal situation would be is that a child is growing up and they have a secure attachment with their primary mother figure.
Okay.
And there's a whole reason why it actually is the mother. It's not the father. We don't have time to go into that today, but there is a scientific reason for that. Fathers play a huge role, but not as the primary attachment figure.
Right.
So a child has this secure attachment, and what that allows them to do, let's start with the 2-year-olds, because then kind of 2-year-olds is the same as a teenager.
Right.
A 2-year-old has now gained the ability to walk away, to crawl away, to go and explore and try things out and experiment with things. And so this is a whole new life for them, right? They've up until now been totally dependent on their the people around them to even pick them up and move them. And so now they've got this ability to move around. And a child with a secure attachment, what that will look like is that they will feel safe to explore. They will feel safe to get curious. I wonder what this is. Let me touch it. Let me taste it. Let me do this. And then what happens is that they will frequently come back to their attachment figure to check in, to just have that moment of connection. What some children will do is that they kind of forget that they have a parent. They're out there on their own. They're exploring things. They don't know where their parent is. They couldn't care less where their parent is, right? And we see parents chasing around their kids because their kids are like, I don't know. I don't know where they are. A child with a secure attachment will always want to maintain that connection with their parent.
Okay.
And that's healthy. Healthy. And what will happen is that limits do need to be set. No, you can't put your finger in the electric socket.
Right.
Right? There are limits that have come with this new freedom that they have. And the way in which those limits are expressed and how they respond really also shows their attachment. Do they go into a deep shame place? Or are they able to accept the limit? They cry, they're upset, they wish it were different, but they maintain their connection, their emotional connection with their parent. So when we go to teenage years, we're kind of haven't seen the same thing, right? These newfound freedoms and also this body and these hormones, and they're feeling all kinds of new things. This would be an amazing opportunity for a child with a secure attachment to get the guidance, to want the guidance from their parent of how do I navigate this? This is all new stuff for me.
Yeah.
Rather than a child with an insecure attachment who won't necessarily go to their parent for that guidance. They'll be out, well, let me try this, let me try that. And any kind of limits feels very much like well, you just don't love me. You don't want me to have fun. You don't want me to be happy. That's the language of someone with an insecure attachment still. And so the language of a secure attachment would be, I'm frustrated, but I also trust you that you have my best interest in mind. I never question that. I know that you love me, right? Like that never comes into question for a child with a secure attachment. And so when there's a limit set, it doesn't result in shame. It doesn't result in this huge disconnect in the relationship. It actually is able to be navigated and communicated in terms of, and this is what we're going to do. Like we're going to go this way. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. This is why. So it's the nuances of the relationship that really showcase where a person's attachment style is. Because then, of course, that can then be extrapolated to adulthood. And how are we navigating romantic relationships? How are we navigating work relationships with our boss that may trigger us because here's this authority figure, and it becomes the basis for every single one of our relationships.
Right. Yeah, 100%. So while you were talking, I was thinking of my own relationship with my son and the
Yeah.
extreme situation in which
Yeah.
I got divorced and moved and all the trauma
Yeah.
that we went through
Big stress.
with the
Yeah.
experience, big stuff. One thing that I know we've got a lot of people out there with teenagers right now that are very
Yeah.
concerned about the increased suicide rates and the deaths of despair,
Yes.
the social anxiety that I've been
Yes.
watching flow through my own home since 2020,
Yes.
and disclaimer for anyone who's new to me, my doors stayed open for the entire time of 2020.
Mhm.
Children came in and out of my home. Sometimes I think they came here to get away from all of the stuff that was going on outside in the world, where they could not wear a mask, they could be pulled in and loved and accepted and act just like they wanted to here. So this has been a place where I have seen a lot of different teenagers, a lot of different personalities.
Yep.
And I will say this, when they get here, they've come in, it's almost like I've seen them go, whew. I've
Exactly.
almost seen
That
this,
relief.
yes.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
even though my son has gotten a little angry with me here and there, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not going to do that. That is not going to happen.
Right.
He'll stomp away. He always
Yep.
comes back,
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
so that
Mhm.
brought me great relief. Let me just share that,
Yep.
because it's been
Good.
a hard time for a lot of us
Yes.
parents, kids
Yes. A very hard
homeschooling,
time.
in and
Mm.
out, back and forth.
Yep.
So can
Yep.
you tell us a little bit about what someone might want to look for? Because this is
Yep.
important to me as well. With
Mhm.
these children that have been in this very
Yep.
abnormal situation in our world, of all of the craziness that's going on,
Mhm. Yep.
what can they look for maybe some red flags or things that they need to really dial into their kids and get their finger on the pulse of what's happening with their kids today? Like,
This
just your
is
top thing.
huge. Yeah, no, this is huge, Carbon, because as you have alluded to, there's been a very concerning trend happening in what we can just call the mental health of kids. And it was a trend that was underneath the surface, and then kind of COVID brought it all out, right?
Yep. Mhm.
And even the Colorado State Hospital, Children's State Hospital, issued a federal emergency for the amount of children and early teenagers that were coming into the emergency room with suicidal ideation or a plan or an attempt. And so this is a really, really big problem that we have to address. We
Mhm.
have to address. And so when we look at, I guess, going back to kind of true root cause, the attachment would be a root cause of this type of thing.
Mhm.
And when we look at future traumas in life, even those who go into the military and they have more struggles with their mental health and they come back with PTSD, they are ones who already have this insecure attachment wiring where they already feel alone. They have already felt lost. They have already felt overwhelmed. And then you put them out in these situations and they're tested even more, and they're not able to maintain good state of health. They've got both the inflammation and the oxidative stress happening on the cellular level, and then they've got some very serious mental health stuff going on. So that's very similar to kind of what our kids have experienced, where they were already stressed, right?
Yeah.
They're already feeling lost. They're already feeling alone. They may already be feeling like their parents are not really there. Their parents don't really know them. And maybe they're distracted, maybe they're busy. I am of the belief that every parent has the best of intentions. And so it's just how is that implemented? And a lot of that is based on the parents and their nervous system and how it is wired. And that stuff happened in their early childhood. So it's often stuff not even that they're aware of. It's just unconsciously being passed on to their kids. And so then kids have this major disruption in their life. All of a sudden, they're out of school. All of a sudden, there's all this news around about this awful thing that's killing people, and you don't know when you're going to get it, and you don't know who's going to. I mean, it's just the social media around this created so much fear
Mhm.
that it tipped many people over the edge in terms of their nervous system, their stress level, and overwhelm. And so
Mhm.
then you have adults, you have parents who are now, stuck to the news and feeling anxious and feeling overwhelmed. Their kids are feeling even more of that disconnect because their parents are so focused on, oh my goodness, like, what do I do? How do I keep my family safe? How do I keep my job, my finances? It was a huge stress. And when we're in that stress and survival state, we're not connected to other people. We're not really emotionally connected. We're not mentally present when we're with people. We're thinking about, what are the things I need to do? And kids then feeling dysregulated themselves, feeling uneasy, feeling lost, feeling overwhelmed. And then they feel even more of that gap and that disconnection from their stressed out parents. And it really is putting them over the edge.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, have I witnessed this? And let me say, it was about 4 days ago. You know how memories come through on Facebook.
Yeah.
And the memory was of me and my son on the news before school started in July, where I was begging the school system not to do this to our kids, not to send them into school. This was when the numbers showed like our kids are not at risk here, people. What's
Right.
really going on, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And I'm wide open. I know what the agenda was with this whole thing. I'm under no misconception that there was actually something out there that we think it is. Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. But my point was like, the social, emotional, mental, physical trauma these kids are going to face if you don't let them go back to school is going to be beyond anything you can imagine. This was a year
Right.
ago.
Yep.
And of course they played the 2-minute snippet of me just basically looking like a lunatic, and my son even expressing himself very eloquently. He said, it's not normal for us to go to school this way. I want to be able to see my friends' faces,
Yes.
And so my point is that now we are a year later, and I have heard the stories of these kids. They will literally be in school and they could not connect. I mean, he told me at one point, the social anxiety among my friends, this was last fall, is so bad, Mom, that when we're out in public, even at the mall, they have a hard time communicating. So,
exactly.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the thing that you just said a minute ago too, is that I think everyone needs to hook onto here is that, we adults, if we are not cognizant or conscious of our own wounds from childhood, our own trauma that we don't even realize is happening or is running our nervous system, it is very difficult, at least this is my opinion and what I've witnessed, to be able to help our children regulate their nervous system. Is that accurate?
I would say it's impossible, Carmen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first things that I picked up on when this whole thing started was, how am I, because I was insecurely attached as well, how am I going to continue to grow and change? Because I've been studying trauma for almost 5 years now. How am I going to be able to even amp up my own healing to be able to regulate this household? Because I have a nephew that lives here too, to be able to give these kids somewhere secure to be.
Exactly.
How do parents begin to do this that don't even understand trauma? Where do they begin?
Yeah.
Tell us about what you got coming to help us with all of this.
Yeah, no, you're making me think of one particular interview that I have on my upcoming Biology of Trauma Summit. And I brought in Erica Komisar specifically for this purpose to talk about this kind of how do we help our kids coming out of a pandemic when faces have been covered, we haven't been able to connect, our social cues are kind of taken away from us. What do we do? And so she talks about some of the trends, even the increase in ADHD, obviously, right? Like if we're having social anxiety, it's also going to present itself as I'm having a hard time focusing. Well, of course you are, right? And so what are the specific things that parents can do to help? So she is a person that I connected with through the study group under Dr. Alan Shore. And he's considered the father of modern attachment theory. And this whole idea that you've been talking about, where attachment is really regulation. That's what attachment is. The process of attachment, and that secure attachment is the process of regulation. And a parent's nervous system, especially mom, but this is also where dad can play a role too. A parent's nervous system is what they share with their infant and their young child. And so whatever it is that you have in you is going to be shared. And that's not something that you can fake, right? This is not something where this is again, that big difference between the mind and the body. And it's not going to be enough to think good thoughts and to, send love through our thoughts to our child, though that is important. It's actually our body and our unconscious nervous system that's running our program and our alarm and safety program. How is that wired? Because whatever our wiring is, that's what we share. We share what we have. We can't share what we don't have. And so this work is so important for parents to be able to, again, just become aware Where is your nervous system? How is it doing? Is it in the stress mode? Is it in the overwhelm mode? And give you the tools to bring that back into parasympathetic, because that is not only where you will be at your best, but it's also what you would want to share with your children.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a whole biology of trauma summit coming up starting Monday, where we go into so much of these details in the different interviews. I'm really excited about it.
Oh, I am so excited about you. I'm going to share links in a minute. So, but can you talk for another 10, 15 minutes? Are you good with time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with time.
Okay, good. So, one of the things that I have been listening to lately, because I always try to, up the ante on my own learning. And, once I get through this, oh, I understand that completely. Oh, I get that. So attachment, attachment trauma was one of the first things that I learned about, when I ended my marriage of almost 20 years. Right. Because I realized that I played a part in how I ended up married to somebody with a complete opposite attachment, style, right? So we had
what we do.
Dismissive avoidant was what he was. Here I was insecure, chasing the dismissive avoidant, and he was like, "Help me, get me out of here."
The anxious always find the avoidance, and the avoidance always look for the anxious.
That's right. And I believe, I like to think about it like this, because even though the marriage ended and it was a very traumatic, horrible experience, I always look back at it and go like this: I thank you, God, for bringing me this person to open my eyes to the wound that I had, that I need to heal so that I can move forward and end this trauma for my child.
Exactly.
So I have explained that to my kid, and I have one of those kids that's got a 30-year-old mind, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he gets it. So I had to sit down and have those hard conversations when it was age appropriate to say, this was my wiring from my childhood, my biology, which is the story I was going to share from earlier, is the abandoned, rejected, story has been carried from the time that my grandmother, who was a product of rape, by the way. So my mom's mom was born from her mother being raped by a farmhand. So, I mean, we're talking generations here.
Generational stuff here.
So for me, it was fascinating to watch that ancestry play out. And then land right here with me, right? And I've even told my mom, I'm like, thanks for showing me how to have codependent, insecure behavior. Thanks a lot for that, So the hope I want to give to people with this is that I want to say, you couldn't have found a more insecure person than me, okay? I'm not kidding you. You could read every journal I've written in. But what I
don't know, Carmen. I may have given you a run for the money back in the day.
Well, let me just say this is what I think is so powerful. And I want people to walk away with this today, is that we get an opportunity to be aware and present so that this stops here.
Exactly.
So my son gets to move forward in his life through my experience and have a normal and healthy relationship rooted in security, finding a secure attached partner who then has a securely attached child who gets to move forward in the world and lead our world out of this mess that we're in.
Yes. The way I see it is like we get to stand on top of what has been in our past, rather than having it weighing us down and piling on top of us and holding us back. We actually, when we do this type of work, we actually then help inform us on what we can work on, where we can make our life better, where we can still have some work to do, but we're standing on top of it and letting it help us grow and be better people, rather than having us be held back and held down.
Oh, I love that so much. That reminds me of a backpack. I use the backpack scenario where how we go through life with a backpack. It's empty when we're little. And then we start throwing all the crap in it, the shame, the guilt, all the bad stuff. And the next thing you know, we're just walking like this. And then I always say, well, just see if you can just let go of it. Right. But this is great because you can't get rid of it. It's there.
It's there.
It's there. And you can stand on top of it and help you grow. Right. I love that. Okay. So let's talk about this for just a second. So in our school, in the high school right now that, my son is going back to this fall, they're starting a calming room. Okay. Which is great. A calming room is fantastic. A place for these kids whose nervous systems are out of control to come into and just kind of, take a breath. Because a lot of them don't have that at home. They don't have diffusers and meditation headbands and the smells and the sounds going on that I've got in my home. And it's great. But my thing was this. I wrote back, I love this idea, but what are we doing to teach them how to become securely attached, how to find that security within themselves and validation within themselves, how to
Yep.
have good boundaries with their friends, how to not
Right.
slip into addictive behaviors when they're feeling insecure and abandoned and rejected. So
Exactly.
I want to have a meeting with this counselor, and I want to offer some training to this school and help them to feel normal, that they are not
Right.
alone in these feelings, and have a definition for what they're going through. What
Hmm.
would be beneficial for us to bring into these schools as far as programming is concerned, or classes, things like that?
Yeah. Oh, Carmen, there's so much, like my mind is just going
I
like
know, I
all
bet.
of the things that we
Big
could do.
question.
So so here is my short answer. I am there with you. I love the idea. And yet, how realistic is it for us to teach our children that, hey, when you're feeling anxious, go avoid the current situation and just go away to this room where it's calm, you can calm yourself. But then they're having to come back into real life, and we haven't taught them the skills on how to actually stay present and work through that.
Yes.
So we're almost teaching them that, oh, when you're stressed, go and use something, go have a coping strategy, a coping mechanism, calm yourself down, and then come back. Ooh, I'm struggling with that one as well.
Hmm.
So what I would love to see are tools being brought into the classroom to help kids know what their body responds to best for keeping it calm,
Hmm.
for keeping it consistently in a zone where it's manageable and their emotions aren't getting off the handle, either so stressed or overwhelmed and into the collapse and I give up and I'm not going to do this at all, right?
Right.
And so there are so many tools, and I'm just thinking of the tools that I have here in my desk,
Yep.
because this is the environment that I now create for myself, knowing that I have these tendencies, knowing that I have this strong pull towards overwhelm and the chronic freeze. I've got my feet right now up on a pillow because
Hmm.
I have found that when I have to have my feet firmly grounded on something for me to be able to stay fully present with you, Carmen.
Yep.
I also have an acupressure mat. So this is something where I let me grab it here. So this is something
I
that
have
I
that.
wrap. Yep. I have this here at my feet. I wrap my feet around it whenever there's something that happens that normally I would just kind of be like, ooh, that is stressful. And I'm going to go away in my mind. It's like, nope, I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to stay present. I'm going to work through this. I'm going to gently guide my system to be able to stay in the moment and work through this. And what do I need to do to work through this? And what is actually scary about this? Because what would happen before, I would feel stressed. I'd immediately go up and get something to eat.
Hmm.
Ah, right. And that's kind of what we're teaching with this kind of thing is, oh, you feel stressed, go ahead and just get up and go.
Yep.
Ooh. And then in terms of even the lights in the classroom, right? Like the lights in the classrooms, many of them can be very irritating to the nervous system.
Hmm.
And so when they're in there for long hours, even when they're in there for short hours of time, and you've got these lights that are already pushing their nervous system to, I'm exhausted. This is junk light. This is hard on my system. Yeah, they're going to reach that place of stress and overwhelm sooner. So there's so many different ways in which they can create the environment in the classroom to promote parasympathetic regulated state that I would want to see as being the top primary thing that they're doing.
Me
Having
too.
having kids bring in blocks. I sometimes have used textbooks, but you can use any kind of other things that they put under their feet so that they can really push their feet into something and get some sense of grounding. And where are my feet? Bring in acupressure mats, bring in all kinds of the tools that will actually help their nervous system stay present, stay engaged, and not go into stress and overwhelm.
I agree. And I love essential oils. I mean, I've got peace, I've
Right?
got
Why
console, I've
can't
got
we
all
use
that.
those in the classroom?
Right. Yeah. And the other thing that comes into my head too is, addiction. I mean, come
Yes.
on, like you just said, if something's uncomfortable, we run away from it instead of staying
Yes.
with whatever is happening. So,
Exactly.
I in my head, I see this dream of, blue blocker glasses, nice
Yes.
lamps lit in the corners, fluorescent
Yes.
lights are off. Kids have the
Exactly.
ability to put their
Mhm.
feet on that pressure mat.
Yep. Yep.
And I bought my son and his girlfriend. I love that you said that about the ADHD increasing too,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
he came home one day and he goes, I have ADHD. I'm like, okay, hold on. No, you don't. You've got a lot of stress is what you have,
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
and then his girlfriend's like, oh, I definitely have it. And then all of a sudden everyone here has ADHD. I'm like, wait a
Everyone has
minute.
it now.
Right. So I bought these little bubble things 2 days
Yep.
ago. Have you
Yep.
seen them? They're plastic and
Hmm.
you pop them like bubble
Yeah.
wrap. So I
Yeah.
got each one
Yeah.
of them and then I
Yeah.
put a little note on them and I said,
Yep.
take it wherever you go.
Yep.
I feel like that's a way for people
Yes.
to feel things,
Exactly.
even
Yes.
if it's like not just your feet, but your hands are
Yes.
busy. So you're
Yes.
able to focus and stay in
Exactly.
a calm, centered space.
Yes. Yeah.
Ugh,
Absolutely. And I find that many kids will often do better sitting on a bouncy ball or standing up. So getting some kind of desk where they can stand up. That would be much better for some nervous systems than sitting down in a chair where, yeah, they kind of leave their body
right.
and they have a really hard time feeling centered and feeling like they can focus in on their work because their mind is off doing what it normally does to survive, which is kind of disconnect.
Right. And I think, and I'll
Mhm.
say this and then we'll get started to wrap up. And I want you to share, I've got links I'm going to drop in the chat in a moment while you're
Yeah.
talking a little bit more about the summit and what they can expect from it. But
Mhm.
I want to
Mhm.
say this too. I think that everyone needs to get very real about the fact that we
Yep.
have lost connection with human beings to the
Mhm.
point where people have moved there. If I see people afraid of people, I see
Yes.
them unwilling to make eye contact, never
Yeah.
mind trying to hug and feel another human
Mhm.
being. So
I
if
know.
there's anything, I mean, anything at
Mhm.
all that we can
Mhm.
do to even begin the
Yep.
process of reconnecting with our children and helping
Exactly.
them through this, it is to touch your children, not in a, make
Yeah.
sure that you manage your boundaries and all of that good
Yep.
stuff. But to reconnect in a physical, emotional, and mental way without the distractions, starting
Yep.
at home, 100% put your phone down. Let's have a
Mhm.
conversation.
Mhm.
Come over
Yep.
here and it's a rule in our house. Hug your mother, hug your mom, and that's all of them. They come in, hi
Right.
mama, like all his friends,
Yep.
I mean, I may not
Yep.
see some of them for 5 months if they come by. It's
Yep.
like, hi mama,
Right.
they hug.
Yep.
So I think that is so important that they don't even think that it's okay to hug and touch each other anymore.
Right. And we've become afraid of other people. Ooh, you might give me COVID. You might get me sick.
Mm.
And it's gonna really show up in our mental health in a few years.
And
Mhm.
these are our leaders of our future. These are the ones that we are. Listen,
Exactly.
when I am 75, 80, whatever it is, or whenever I'm needing someone to come over and take me to my doctor's appointment, let's hope it's 85 or 90. But I don't want someone who's sick in their mind and disconnected and addicted.
Yep.
We
Right.
need good, solid kids that are learning how to be leaders in our world. So
Yep.
all right,
Yep.
tell us a little bit about who's going to be like some of the topics, who's speaking, and I'm going to go grab links while you do that so I can share with everyone out on social
Yeah,
media. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me pull up my list here. But yeah, I'm super excited about it. Biology of Trauma Summit. It starts on Monday. And I have brought in experts and integrated this trauma work, stored trauma. How does it affect our biology? And then some of the actual biology pieces that we need to be addressing. So I've got things like Dr. Peter Levine talking about how trauma is actually stored in the nervous system. Where is that? Trauma is not in the story. Trauma is in our body. Where in our
Mhm.
body? How in our body? What is this chronic functional freeze state that we talk about? So that's all my talk with Dr. Peter Levine. But then I also have some other trauma leading experts. So I have Darren McGuire. He's talking about a trauma informed marriage, trauma informed relationships. What is that? And how does that look very different than a couple, a marriage who's having some issues? They go into counseling and they get the traditional counseling. So a lot on the relationship piece, a lot on the trauma piece, but then a lot on this biology piece. So what are the patterns that we see in metabolic chaos, in the immune system, in the brain, even with the neurotransmitters and the brain inflammation. So anytime that we go into overwhelm, what I've noticed is that many people also experience some inflammation in their brain at that time. Now, which came first, the overwhelm and then the brain inflammation, or did the brain inflammation contribute to the overwhelm? I don't know. Chicken and egg. We got to deal with it though,
Mhm.
because otherwise, if there's inflammation around the nervous system, it's going to stay stuck. And so this is really what this whole summit is about, is how to free your biology from the chronic effects of stored life experiences. so that you truly are able to stand above it and not have it continue to affect your life, your health in a negative way.
Yeah, there could not be, I mean this with everything that I am saying to you, Amy, there could not be a more important summit right now. There could not be a more important summit. I am so grateful and thankful to you for bringing this to the forefront. I have been like pounding the pavement since 2017 when I opened the doors going, why isn't anyone talking about trauma?
Exactly.
This is part of being a healthy individual.
Yes.
You know, Caroline Leaf said, most recently I was listening to, I know you love her. I know you do. Oh, she's so awesome. But she said something the other day that made me go, whoa. She said, the mind changes the brain. The brain doesn't manage the mind. The mind changes the brain. So what we think, and we thought, what you think, what you think your body experiences and all of that, psychosomatic, somaticism and all somatosensory disorders and things like that.
Yeah.
But that was so powerful because I thought, if our mind can convince our brain to shift and change, creating those new neural pathways and whatnot, we have so much opportunity to undo so much of what has been done.
So much potential, so much potential. And this is what people will discover, is that as they do this work, they find that it never stops.
Never.
Because there's always the next level. I am at a much better place of health than I ever than I even was before my health crash. And it's like, because I'm at the place where the trauma is no longer affecting my biology. I've been able to reverse the autoimmune stuff, been able to address the gut inflammation, the brain inflammation. And now it's like, whoa, everything is opened up. And now I get to do some biohacking and some peptides. And it's like, there's always the next level that you truly can get to when you've addressed this piece.
Yeah. And I want to say this too is, when you're in the middle of something so traumatic, I don't think that people understand. This is something my ex-husband just could not seem to get. I would say to him, I don't think you understand that I have been completely hijacked. When you find out that you've been betrayed and then you're getting separated and then you're getting divorced and you're raising a kid by yourself, there is a level of shock to the nervous system where even if you wanted to be in your right mind, you're gone. I mean, you are just trying to survive and move forward. That went on for a couple of years for me, where I was just trying to survive. And then all of a sudden I woke up one day and I went, whoa, I feel the ground under my feet. What is that? And now I recognize my own behaviors again. I feel my hands. I want people to understand that a traumatic experience doesn't happen, then it's over.
Nope,
there's a lot of things you have to process. So you guys need to see, you need to watch this summit, sign up for it. It is going to be more valuable than you can possibly. Please share the link with everyone that you know. I am going to be sharing this with the school board. They love me. They don't. It's okay. But I'm a fly in their ear. This is that important. This is the hill that I die on. The kids to me are the hill that I die on. That is our future. We adults have had our opportunity here to do everything that we can do to live a good life. We owe it to our kids to get a grip on trauma so that we can guide them in the best way possible. And there's no one better in better position to do that than you, Amy. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you, Carmen.
Yes, the utmost respect for you. So any final words here at all?
I was just actually looking at the numbers because I wanted to see where things are at. So far, as of just right now, 56,000 people have registered for the summit, Carmen. So this is something that definitely share, because people are ready for this topic. People are ready to get away from the fake, right? The fake superficial stuff, and really start addressing what we have known are underlying issues, but really have come out lately. And so share this with everybody you know, join the party, because it's obviously a party, 56,000 so far, and would love to have you there. I've got a Facebook group going. I'll be doing some live meetings during it. So there'll be a lot of interaction and ways to ask your questions, get answers, and really find the next piece for you.
Yes. Okay. I remember one last thing I want to make sure I cover, because my coaches, I tell them all the time, you guys, this is part of your work as a coach to be able to help people. Do you you mentioned at one point that you were going to be doing a certification or a training for people to work with people with trauma. Do you have that available for coaches, or is that part of the summit?
That will be coming out right after the summit. So I am starting that in August.
Okay. So you'll send me all the good stuff.
All the good stuff, Carmen. Yep. Certification course for health coaches to become certified in biology of trauma so that they are more equipped, have more tools, have a different lens to be able to see trauma and know how to address it. Mhm.
Awesome. Well,
So,
we'll just do
yeah.
a whole launch and all that stuff when that comes around.
Yep.
That'll be one of our things we'll do. Okay. Amy, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. And I will
Okay.
talk to you soon. I'll get you on the calendar as soon as possible for that
Sounds
launch.
good.
Okay. All right.
All right,
Thanks,
Carmen.
everybody. Have a good day. Thanks.